country. Man can get lost out here. Forget there's people and things that ain't so simple as this. How long we been riding together, Charlie?
Nigh on 10 years.
Mm-hmm. You know what they call that? Call it a decade.
I always hoped somebody gentle and caring might come along.
I'm not who you think I am, Sue.
My name's Denton Baxter. You know, folks around these parts don't take to free grazers.
Always been country plenty for man and beast.
Times change, Mr. Spearman.
Most time a man will tell you his bad intentions if you listen. Let yourself hear. You reckon them cows worth getting killed over?
Cows is one thing, but one man telling another man where he can go in this country is something else. The lawman who sat in that jailhouse sort of sneering sticks in my craw.
Hello, everyone. Cowpokes and cowgirls, welcome back to yet another installment of the Westerns for Life podcast, a podcast dedicated to all things Westerns. On today's episode, we'll be covering the 2003 film Open Range, which is directed by Kevin Costner, also starring Kevin Costner and Robert Duvall. And before we get into the plot of the film, I just want to quickly introduce my two amazing co-hosts, as usual. Dan from Dan's Movie Cave and Carlos from Eastwood for Life fan. Thanks as always for joining the show for another great episode. And with that, I'll say we'll get into the plot description for the film coming up right now. The plot. So the plot of the movie goes as follows. It's sort of basically about a group of cattle herders, four men. Boss Spearman, played by Robert Duvall, Charlie Wade, played by Kevin Costner, Mose Harrison, played by Abraham Ben-Ruby, if I pronounced that right, I'm probably butchered that, and also Budden, played by Diego Luna, who sort of free graze their cattle across the vast prairies of the West, and one day they sort of come into this area very near this town called Harmonville, which is run by a evil sort of landowner, rancher, Baxter, played by the late great Sir Michael Gambon, and his crooked Marshal Poole, played by the amazing James Russo, always reliable. And one day they send Mose into town, and they don't hear back from him. And they sort of go to investigate, and they find out that Mose has been hit in the back of the head, and he's sort of kept in the sheriff's jail cell. And that's where they meet the villains of the piece. And Michael Gambon gives this great sort of speech about, just piss off, basically, or bad things will happen. And, they're basically not going to stand for it. And they decide to fight back against the evil tyranny of the town, the evil villains. And along the way, they also meet a doctor played by Annette Bening, who sort of becomes the main central love interest for Kevin Costner's character. That's pretty much the plot description of the film in a small nutshell. So with that, I think we will discuss the characters for this film, and we also have a little, of course, introduction clip for that. So here we go.
The characters.
So the characters. Let's start off, of course, with the main man, Kevin Costner as Charlie Wade. What you guys think about his role in this film? Because I always do love seeing Kevin Costner in these westerns. I think he fits the roles that he plays in these westerns very nicely, and I think he does a great job in this. So what do you guys think of Kevin Costner? Dan?
Yeah, I am a big fan of Kevin Costner, pretty much in everything I've ever seen him in. Love the character in this one. And I was actually, when watching this, I was kind of thinking, because on the case, Robert Duvall is actually his name's first, and I was kind of thinking, is Kevin Costner main or Duvall main guy? I love it that Kevin Costner is a little more subtle in this and hard edge, no nonsense, got a real kind of grisly history. I personally think it's one of his best performances, personally. About you, Carlos?
Kevin Costner in a Western, you can kind of excuse the first one that he was in, Silverado, because he was quite sort of young in his career. But his other Westerns, Dancing with Wolves, Wyatt Earp, and this one, he's just fantastic. Like you, Dan, I do like the idea that he's kind of got a past, and he's trying to run away from his past. And you always know going into this movie with his character, there's a lot more to it, and that gets shown as the movie goes along. You see layers of his past that he begins to talk about. He just gets kind of a little bit more easier to talk about. He comes to terms with his past, and quite a dark character. But towards the end of the movie, you do see flashes of it. Rather than in some sort of other roles, you just know what his character is all about. I like that this one's kind of a little bit of a mystery to it. Yeah, fantastic performance from Kevin Costner. Again, always reliable in westerns for me. Yeah, outstanding performance. Again, I think what Dan said about Robert Duvall. I think Kevin Costner was kind of some bits of info I've seen. Robert Duvall's name is the first name, and Kevin Costner's kind of a little bit just below. I think for him to get Robert Duvall to agree to do this movie, he kind of said that he would put him as the first name on the cast. Kind of more of a respectful thing, because I think Robert Duvall was pushing 70 when he starred in this movie. Jeff, what do you reckon?
Yeah, that was actually one of the things I want to talk about as we are going to segue into Robert Duvall. But yeah, that is very true. Kevin Costner did intentionally sort of put Robert Duvall's name above his as a sign of respect, and I do think that's a really admirable thing to do. I mean, that shows the great sort of character that Kevin Costner has. That he's willing to do that. He's not a big egomaniac sort of A-list celebrity that sort of is like, no, it's my movie, my name is above the title, my name's top credit. No, he's like, Rob Duvall is a seasoned actor, a great actor who deserves respect. And yeah, he's actually, looking at it, he does have the same amount of screen time as Costner in this film, or maybe even a little bit more. So it's fitting. And just to get back quickly on Kevin Costner. But Kevin Costner, definitely, I agree with everything that you guys basically just said. With the exception of maybe Silverado. Again, he was very young there. But yeah, he's been a big hit with all these westerns, and especially Dances with Wolves, which turned out to be a masterpiece. Oscar nominated, celebrated film. For me, this one should have been up for a couple of Oscars as well, because I think it's a brilliantly told film. Looks stunning, and Kevin Costner, I think, again, being a bit more stoic in this one, not really, a little bit Eastwood-esque, I would say. Man of a few words in a lot of scenes. He doesn't really show signs of his character until much later. He's sort of very stoic and in the background more. But I think he plays it wonderfully. I think this might be one of my favorite Kevin Costner performances. That's how much I enjoy him in this one. And yeah, with that, I'd say we are going to move over to Robert Duvall, who arguably steals the show from Kevin Costner a little bit in this film as Boss Spearman. But of course, we find out later in the film that there's more to his name. Boss is not his given name. Spoilers, but actually a funny scene. But we won't get into that today, I think. But anyway, what you guys think of Robert Duvall? Who I think is excellent in this film as well. Dan?
Oh, Robert Duvall. I mean, what a legend. He's a guy, whenever I see him, and always think he should have been leading man, kind of on that sort of pecking order as like a De Niro and Pacino of that time. I think he's absolutely phenomenal. And I love it. I say we've already debated, but I love it that he's kind of like more or less top billing in this, or equal billing with Kevin Costner. His character in this, I mean, from the get-go, you kind of think he's going to be a bit of a careless bastard to some extent in some of the scenes. But of course, as the story goes on, you actually see how caring he is for his workers in this. Of course, we'll touch upon some of the others later. But yeah, amazing. I think to pull it off at 70. Horse riding, bit of action, bit of running as well. Quite incredible. Yeah, just great all round. Robert Duvall, what a legend. How about you, Carlos?
Oh, he's a legend. Very, very underrated. Yeah, I think he probably stole the show in this. I don't think even Kevin Costner actually minded. I
Yeah,
mean, look at his career. I mean, Godfather 1 and 2, which I thought probably the first one, his supporting role in that. I always liked his role
yeah, same
in
here.
that. Um, Apocalypse Now, another iconic role
Yeah,
in that one. I mean, he's been nominated, I think, for an Oscar, I think 4 or 5 times, and possibly, I think he's won one for a movie in
I
the
think
80s.
so. Yeah, for Tender Mercies, I
Tender,
think.
yeah,
Yeah,
Tender Mercies, which was a kind of like a drama, which was, I think, probably a role and performance in a movie they didn't really think that was he was going to win from, and not just that, he's appeared in movies like Falling Down and Days and Thunder.
yeah,
Kind of more in the 80s and the 90s. He's always looked old, and I had to kind of look up to see how old he was. How old was he when he done this performance? Because he's done a couple of horse scenes where he's riding a horse, and he was, I think he was just 70, just pushing 70 or just over 70,
yeah.
which is fantastic, outstanding for him. I think probably he's had the best lines in this movie because Kevin Costner is kind of a little bit more of a silent Eastwood sort of Western sort of character in this movie. So Robert Duvall does have the best lines, and I think one of the scenes I thought was a real respectful scene when the horses kind of went, they were lost, and, and Charlie was with Mosey. Robert Duvall, the boss, he comes with the horses, and he was
Yeah.
kind of galloping with the horses. And Charlie Costa's character said, "Oh, they looked at him in amazement and said they broke the mold with
They
this
broke the
guy."
mold after him.
And
Yeah,
yeah, which is really paying homage to kind of like the career of Robert Duvall, because he's been in some fantastic performances a lot of the time as a supporting actor. I think probably maybe if he was probably a little bit more taller, a bit more better looking, and probably had a more more strands of hair, then maybe he could have been a leading man. But nevertheless, respectful name in cinema, a great actor.
yeah,
Kev?
definitely, definitely. I mean, I can only second that what both of you just said. Such a legendary actor, and for me, he's always been good in any film, no matter the quality of the film. Even if it's a lesser film, he's still a huge highlight in it, which is a testament to how great he is. He also has a great voice. For an actor, he has a great voice. He grabs your attention when he speaks, and especially when he shouts. I think Robert Duvall is one of the greatest shouters on screen. He's right up there with Pacino
Yeah.
and the likes of Pacino for me. But yeah, no, there's a certain charm to him, and especially in this film, where they do pay a lot of respect to him and to the legacy of Robert Duvall. Yeah, we shouldn't forget he was also in another classic westerns many years before. He was a supporting actor in True Grit, of course, with John Wayne, with
Yeah.
the Duke, and yeah, the scene you mentioned, especially when he's riding there in slow motion, he's galloping on the horse. That's such a great shot and a huge, sort of tribute shot to Robert Duvall. So yeah, I can only second what you guys said about him and just say he's fantastic in this film. And yeah, he does, I would say, steal the show quite a bit from Kevin Costner. He definitely has the best lines. I love towards the end the little moments with the chocolate that he had and cigars, and we're probably going to get into that when we talk favorite scenes. But yeah, he's fantastic. So I would say we move on to a little off segment and talk Women of the West, because the next major character of the film is a female, and she has a major role in this one. Another Western that we're covering a big, strong female character role in, and this is a little side segment called Women of the West.
Women of the West.
In which it's still in part of the character discussion, but we discuss the Annette Bening character here as the Doc's. Well, we are led to believe she's the Doc's wife, but it turns out it isn't that way. But Sue Barlow, played by Annette Bening, there she is right there, who I think probably hasn't been better in a movie for me. I mean, I've seen quite a bit of Annette Bening's roles. She's always a delight to see on screen. But this might be my favorite performance for her. It's very sort of subtle. She's more quiet in some scenes. It's a mature role for her. It's a mature woman. She isn't really made up that much. She's very natural looking as well.
Yeah.
It might be my favorite Annette Bening performance this role. So what do you guys think of Annette Bening, Dan?
Yeah, I'm going to actually agree with you there about this performance in the film. I like Annette Bening. American Beauty is a fantastic performance from her, but when you go from a complete bitch in that film to Open Range, I think it's a fantastic character. I mean, she's a brilliant actress with a great filmography. But yeah, that's one thing that stood out for me. Is she just looks really natural in this, and you kind of when you first see, her, you think she's going to be a real timid character. And I remember watching this actually when it came out, I thought just another generic timid character. I wasn't that familiar with her when I watched this film, other than American Beauty. But then when she starts to go on and she sort of has a lot of the exchanges, the dialogue with Kevin Costner's character, you kind of realise she's a real strong female lead in this. And yeah, solid. Probably my favourite performance. That you, Carlos?
Yeah, I agree with Dan. I think for anybody who's going to watch this movie, it appears that her character is going to be like the quiet, timid sort of women that you normally get in the West that doesn't really speak out loud. Yeah, another great performance. I mean, when you got an actress with the caliber for this movie, again, that's going to add weight to the cast for sure. I was pretty sure that Annette Bening had won an Academy Award, and I quickly done a check because I thought she won with the movie American Beauty, because that won quite a few Academy Awards, and she was nominated for that, but she didn't win for her performance. But this one's another outstanding performance for me. But from her career, I think her greatest performance was in the gangster movie with Warren Beatty, Bugsy, because
that was not a good one.
She played an absolute firecracker in that one. I think that was a performance that was really underestimated. That kind of went under the radar a little bit. But she hasn't won an Academy Award. I correct me if I'm wrong. I think she's had 4 or 5 nominations, but she's never actually won, which does surprise me because she's a fine actress. They try to sort of make her not so much dolled up. I mean, for me, she's not the most eye-catching actress. And I think she was mid-40s when she done this role. I thought she was kind of in her early 50s. Obviously, she's not dolled up and got makeup on, but you can see straight away, as soon as her eyes, Sue Barlow's character's eyes meet up with Charlie, that there's going to be romance there.
There's an instant sort of connection there.
Yeah, they made a good, that was a very good pairing for sure. You know, that wasn't a sort of a pairing that they just kind of threw together. You could tell that was with intent, that Annette Bening was going to be in the movie with Kevin Costner. I think she's still married to Warren Beatty, who she met on the set of Bugsy, and like I say, great actress, great performance as well. I still say her performance in Bugsy and American Beauty probably slightly better for me, but still a great performance in this one.
Yeah, definitely. And just to add on, to add on everything that you guys just said, for me, like I said, I specifically brought up the point that she's not really dolled up or anything, because you do have a lot of these westerns where it might not be realistic for the time period, where a lot of these women wear thick mascara and stuff. I mean, Claudia Cardinal, God love her, she's one of my favorites, obviously, but the fake eyeliner that she has is probably not really accurate to the time. So I do like that she's sort of all natural in this film. which is again realistic for the era in which the film is set. But yeah, just to echo what you guys said, she's absolutely fantastic in this. Like I said, it's probably my favorite of her roles. I mean, there's quite a bit to choose from. I do also love her in Bugsy as well. Also, I got to shout out Danny Collins with Al Pacino. I thought she was a
Yeah,
really nice addition in that cast there
yeah,
as well. She was a delight to watch in that film
yeah.
as
She was
well.
funny in that one. Yeah, she
Yeah,
was.
yeah. But yeah, I do love her in this, and I love the chemistry between her and Kevin Costner. I think it's a very well told romance within this, well, in the story in which a lot of other things happen as well. So yeah, with that, I think we should move on to the main villain, sort of the central villain of the piece, who sort of runs the show in town. The late great Sir Michael Gambon as Baxter, who, yeah, there he is right there in a cool shootout pose.
Hmm.
Who, for me, I gotta be honest. I mean, this will show my age because I'm obviously the youngest of the three of us on this podcast. For me, growing up, I also grew up a lot on Harry Potter, and of course, Michael Gambon. He played Dumbledore 2.0 because yeah, the real Dumbledore is Richard Harris for me still, but he did play Dumbledore after Richard Harris passed away. And I did see the Harry Potter films obviously before I watched this film. So when I watched the film, I was like, holy shit, that's Dumbledore as the villain. Which took a bit of getting used to for me, but I absolutely love him in this, and he uses his I think he was Irish, wasn't he? I think he uses his
Yeah,
own
it
sort of
was.
natural Irish accent in this, and he has some great lines and monologues, some evil villain dialogue, and I thought he was a really good villain. So what you guys think of Michael Gambon?
Yeah, but when I first see him, I thought I recognised his face, but I just couldn't place him. I'm not really a Harry Potter fan, but then I kind of put two and two together and thought, oh, he took over the role from the first guy. Say I don't know Harry Potter names. And yeah, looking at his filmography, I mean, a lot of the films he's in, I actually forgot. I really did like Layer Cake. I
He
forgot he
was
was in
Layer
Layer
Cake. He
Cake.
was in that. Yeah, true.
Yeah. I'm thinking, yeah, this guy's got a really good filmography. King of Thieves, which was a more recent year film. Um, yeah, I mean, for the limited screen time he has, he does a good job with it. I mean, I was kind of sitting thinking after, was the villain in it enough? But I think his presence is made known just for what was he, maybe 10 minutes of the film,
Yeah, something like that.
possibly.
Yeah,
Um, and I think it's you he does, because your emotion towards him, you hate him. So that's testament to how well he played it, and that's what I think. But yeah, looking at his filmography, it's quite impressive. But I don't know enough and remember enough of other performances. But this one, brilliant. Carlos.
Yeah, I like the idea for a change in a Western that you've actually got an Irish accent,
yeah,
a proper Irish actor, where sometimes in Westerns you get other actors, they try to put on the Irish accent. So that was good to see. Um, yeah, I mean, I recognise the face. I don't say I instantly know him. I've only seen the first Harry Potter movie. I've seen him in other movies. I think he was in Al Pacino, the Michael Mann movie, The
The
Insider. I think he was
Insider.
in
He
that.
was in that. Yeah, true. Yeah,
Um, I only seen him in bits. I'm not going to say he's an actor that I followed and instantly know straight away. Like Dan, I think when he appears in the first sort of scene or two, you don't really see him till the end of the movie, and you sort of think it's
yeah,
kind of more that his men and his kind of group of men that you hate more really James Russo's character of Marshall. But in the last half an hour, he really does pop up, and what he does, I mean, I'm not going to throw out any spoilers. To try to save his own ass, what he tries to do in his character of Baxter, he becomes a real nasty piece of work, and
yeah.
yeah, you just really want him to get taken down. So he put his part in the movie perfectly. Yeah, yeah, he played a good villain.
Yeah, Yeah, definitely. And I do like his
for the limited
introduction as
amount of
well.
time that he was on.
Yeah, I do like his introduction as well in the film, the jail cell when at first he's sitting in the background, sort of lets James Russo do the talking for most of it, and then he decides to speak up, and he sort of, as Rob Duvall pointed out later, he sort of showed that he was the real guy in charge there at that moment. And yeah, like I said, he does have some of my favorite moments and sort of lines, if you will. I do. We're gonna get into that when we do the favorite scenes and stuff. But I do like at the end, where at the showdown, where he's sort of shouting across from the street. I didn't come all the way from Ireland to have my cattle pissed on by a couple of free grazers. Sorry for any Irish people watching for the terrible accent, but I do love his line there, his line delivery. And yeah, like I said, for me, yeah.
I thought you got the Irish. I thought you got the Irish accent in the end there.
Yeah,
Thanks.
It got better as you went along.
Maybe I should practice a bit more. But no, anyway, like I say, yeah, for me it was a bit, watching it for the first time, I was like, it's Dumbledore from Harry Potter, because yeah, obviously, again, that was a big thing for me growing up. The movies were big around that time, so I was aware of those, and yeah, it was great to see him in it. But yeah, I do think his lackey or sidekick, whatever you want to call him, gets to shine a bit more, and that is James Russo, the ever reliable James Russo as Marshall Poole, who you might remember him if you see his face. There he is. Yeah, he's got one of them faces, doesn't he? You always recognize him in movies. You might remember him from Beverly Hills Cop as the ill-fated friend of Eddie Murphy, Axel Foley. You might remember him from other westerns. He was also in Django Unchained. He was probably the first guy to have dialogue in Django Unchained. He says, "Who's that stumbling around in the dark? State your business or prepare to get winged." That's James Russo, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, I love him, and he's always great to see, especially in more villainous roles, which he has played for the majority of his career, I would say. So yeah, without getting into it for me as much now, what do you guys think of James Russo in this film, Dan?
yeah, right. And if you want to say Snake, because there's a certain scene one of the townspeople has with him at the end where they basically say to him, "It's a shame what you've become." Then he just basically admits it. I just think that's really kind of made me feel horrible. But yeah, James Russo. I remembered him from Donnie Brasco, and he looks so poorly in Donnie Brasco. He looks completely different in this, and I couldn't place him instantly. And then I thought, looking at him a bit more, and yeah, I think as the corrupt sheriff, basically who's basically being paid off to not run the town as it should, not giving law as it should. I think he does a really good job, and yeah, it's very satisfying. I don't want to give anything away. Very satisfying what happens later on. But yeah, definitely the kind of ringleader of a nasty bunch, really, who's just going around and abusing people's good nature, taking what they can from town and bypassers. Very solid role from James Russo. About you, Carlos?
Yeah, James Russo, always reliable. I think the first time I'd ever seen him was in Beverly Hills Cop. He popped up in Once Upon a Time in America. I think probably his standout role for me would always be in Donnie Brasco. He's actually one of the main bunch. So that performance was always a standout one for me. It's funny revisiting this one because he's got that very Italian look, New York born. I think his dad was Italian with a name like that, Russo. I think his mum might have been American. No, the mother was German. So when you see him in the Western, I thought, for instance, he's got like a long moustache. Now, if he didn't have that moustache, he probably would have been a little bit too Italian American looking. So I'm glad that he had that moustache because it seemed to sort of cover up his kind of that Italian in him.
Italian features.
So he kind of looked a little bit more acceptable for a Western for me. Like I say, a snake in the grass. becomes more evil, not a nice sheriff. And I think the people in the town get kind of annoyed about that he's taking backhanders and he's not really
Yeah.
running the town how it should be. But yeah, I mean, a reliable villain in a movie. Yeah, he's made always pops up in movies. A reliable actor. Yeah, and he played his part in this one, James Russo.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like I said, for me, he's another highlight in an already amazing sort of film with a great, amount of cast members, if you will. He's another highlight that sticks out for sure. And I do agree with you, Carlos. The mustache, I think, does help to hide his more Italian features,
Yeah.
which I actually didn't think about how many mob movies he was in, but I almost forgot that he was in Donnie Brasco and Once Upon a Time in America. But yeah, he was definitely in those two films for sure. Also great in those two films, by the way. But yeah, I love him in this film. He's another highlight, as mentioned. And I think we only have a few more minor characters to talk about. So we're going to briefly talk about the rest of the Charles and Boss Spearman gang, if you will. So we'll cover, I think, Mose first, who was sort of the inciting incident for the story. Because of him, the story kicks off the way it does, because he's the guy, of course, that goes into town and gets beaten on the head, in an unfair fight by the deputies. So what you guys think of Mose in this film? Dan?
I think there's one line used to describe Mo that really hits the nail on the head with him. I see he's a real likable character, and the line goes, he's the kind of guy who says good morning to you and means it. And that sums him up, probably because you get a lot of people in this life who will say morning because they feel they have to, and they don't give two shits, and that annoys me. He's like, oh, do you have a nice holiday? Well, I only asked if you mean it. But Mose is that genuine likable person, and you really feel for his character, let's say. Of course, we don't want to give away any spoilers, but yeah, he's the kind of guy you would like as your friend by the side of you, for sure. About you, Carlos?
Yeah, I mean, most they make him it's kind of this likable, big lump of a man. Even to the fact that when he does go to town and he does get beat up, that the locals actually thought he was a nice guy that came into town to get a few bits and pieces, and then he obviously he got locked up in jail. But yeah, I mean, it was a small part, but it adds to the movie. It starts the story, so it's quite an important part that he plays. But yeah, I thought he played it, acceptable role for as long as the character was in the storyline. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, and again, I can only echo those sentiments. And I just say, just add another line about his character that I loved as well, that Robert Duvall delivered. I love that line that Dan just mentioned, which he really hits hard in the film when it does. But I also love when Duvall says, Mose doesn't start fights, he just finishes them. That was a great line as well. But yeah, no, I love Mose, and yeah, wish there was more of him. Obviously, we're not going to spoil too much about what happens. But yeah, some more screen time for him would have been nice, let's say. And yeah, with that, we have one more sort of minor. Well, he's a big character, but within sort of the context of the story, he's a bit minor. And that is the young kid that also travels with our main protagonist, Diego Luna as Button. Yeah, that's it, right there, sitting on the horse. The young Mexican sort of companion that they travel with. Who I think really had some nice scenes and there's some nice moments. Again, he could have shined a bit more in some scenes, but I do love his sort of heroic comeback at the end. Not to spoil too much again, but yeah, I did like Diego Luna as Bun in this film. What do you guys think of Diego Luna in this one?
For me, Diego Luna, I thought he's going to have a real promising, solid career. He doesn't quite look big, imposing. He's quite a slender young guy, but I'll just say one thing. So I don't know if you're going to bring it up, Jeff. He was actually tipped to play Tony Montana in a remake of Scarface,
Oh, was he?
um,
Yeah, I think I've heard
which
something about that, but yeah,
which would have been interesting, and I thought that may really
yeah,
propel his career. In this film, Open Ranges Button, I think he fits the part brilliantly. His slender looks, quite vulnerable, adolescent, um, being really kind of coached by Robert Duvall's
yeah,
character and Kevin Costner. And yeah, I mean, again, another character you really feel for when, you know, certain incidents unfold. And I do have to agree, kind of, he does have his good comeback at the end. And yeah, Diego Luna, solid. Just a shame his career, unless you can count the Star Wars stuff he does, hasn't really gone where I thought it was
Yeah.
going to go to.
yeah,
How about you, Carlos?
He was in Rogue One, wasn't he? I
Rogue
think.
One and Andor, another Star Wars
Oh,
series, I
okay.
believe. And I know he's
Okay.
done some like Narcos. I think it might be
Yeah.
Narcos, but I really thought he was
yeah,
going to be quite a big sort of, almost like a John Leguizamo, like that
Yeah. Yeah.
supporting to some of the real big
He
guys.
he he is actually Mexican. I did sort of think, oh, is he during the movie? Is he really Mexican, or they just got another actor in? And he is actually Mexican.
Yeah,
To me, it wasn't like the strongest Mexican accent. Maybe they tried to dial that down
yeah, could be.
with how he looked. I did enjoy the scenes with Button and Most when they were kind of play fighting. That brought a little bit of
Yeah,
a bit of humour, and I think a lot of his scenes were sort of put there for the sad scenes, a little bit of sympathy, and then he has that nice little comeback in the end of the movie. So all in all, again, quite important to the storyline that Diego plays as Button, which I thought was a bit of a weird name.
yeah,
So it was probably a name that was just given in the story rather than your typical Mexican name, Sanchez or whatever. But yeah, it's
yeah,
kind of more of a comedic name, calling a Mexican Button. But yeah, I thought, yeah, acceptable, decent role.
yeah, yeah. And just to go off on that, I think they even mentioned at one point. I think Kevin Costner says, or Annette Bening asked him, "Is Button really his name?" And Kevin
That's
Costner
it.
said, "Well, it's the only name that we've ever known him by." So yeah, I thought that was nice. But again, there's a
Yeah,
thing with characters and names in this film that the names aren't quite what
yeah,
they seem to be
yeah.
as sort of
I,
revealed
I
in the
thought it.
end.
I
But
thought it was short for. I thought it. I thought it was short for chocolate buttons or something, but I don't know. But
that could be. Who
because
knows?
because they all come up with these fun nicknames towards the end of the movie,
Yeah,
which we'll discuss.
yeah, definitely. Just to go off on something that Dan just pointed out, I do love the scenes with where sort of Robert Duvall is coaching him as well. Especially after, you know, in the beginning of the film, he sort of cheated cards. He's looking at, you know,
Oh
Kevin
yeah, yeah,
Costner's hand of cards when they play a round of poker or whatever it was. But I do like the line that Duval says, where a man's trust is a valuable thing. You know, you gotta
mm.
work to keep it. You don't, you sort of waste it by cheating with cards. And I do love to follow up on that, the moment where he kicks him in the water and he says, "Well, I apologize to you for that." And then Duval says, "Apparently, he has not forgiven you." Do like that moment.
yeah.
So yeah, I love
He brought some lighter
yeah,
moments.
some lighter moments for sure. So yeah, overall, I did like his character. Again, I wish he had a bit more to do, but I get it for the story purposes. He's meant to sort of be out of action, to say, until the end. But yeah, they like Diego Luna, like you guys said, he should have maybe had a bigger career because he's actually pretty damn good in the scenes that he's given there. So yeah, with that, I think we covered pretty much all the major characters. So I would say we move on to behind the camera and talk about the director of the film and the directing. So behind the camera.
Behind the camera.
In which we will discuss the director, of course, who is also the main star of the film, or the main actor, I guess, even though Deval is top billed. But yeah, this also directed this film by, you know, Kevin Costner, who of course directed many of his films that he was also in, sort of similar to Eastwood in that regard. And yeah, I think the directing of this film, it works fine. As I actually was commenting to you guys earlier in the groups chat that we have, was commenting on the transfer of the picture, that the picture looks absolutely amazing and the film looks stunning. And I think that's a testament to, of course, the cinematography, and but also, of course, the way that Costner directed it. I think it's a very well directed film, well paced and everything. I think if there's anything to sort of fault in the film, it's not going to be the directing, that's for sure, because I think that's all top notch in that regard. So, what do you guys think about Kevin Costner as the director of the film? Dan?
Yeah, as I say, I'm a big fan of Kevin Costner on screen and behind the camera. Always have been. This film in particular, I mean, when I watched it, I mean, westerns early 2000s wasn't popular at all.
Yeah.
And I know I reference my granddad a lot, but he's a massive Western fan, and he was actually engaged fully in this film. And he always said before he passed that this is one of the best Westerns since Unforgiven, if not the best. Um, and what always really stands out, other than kind of the landscapes, the scenery he captures, which is just amazing, is the actual shootouts in this sound absolutely
Yeah.
phenomenal. If you want authenticity in a
Yeah.
shootout. There's some movies that do it great, like Heat, but for a Western, this is
It's
incredible
right
every
up
time
there.
I watch it. Yeah,
Yeah.
just brilliant. I cannot fault one part of the direction of this film at all. Brilliant. That yourself, Carlos.
Yeah, I mean Kevin Costner. I mean, after directing the masterpiece Dances with Wolves, I really thought at that time he would sort of go on to direct more movies. I think he's only on his career he directed Dancing with Wolves, then he done The Postman, which was a bit of a letdown. That post-apocalyptic movie, which I actually didn't mind. It did get panned a little bit, and then obviously Open Range. I think people would be surprised that he's only done three, but rewatching this, it really does kind of make me look forward to his next project, which he's building this project of this epic western called Horizon, which has been in the works for quite some time now. Which I think is going to get a release at the end of the year, and I think he's going to do a trilogy of these three movies with an all-star cast, and he's going to be directing that Horizon. Whether it's going to be complete by the end of the year, that remains to be seen. But what you get with Kevin Costner is a guy who he respects the West, how movies should look.
Yeah.
It's quite evident and obvious that he's a fan of westerns. He's the way he shot these Dancing with Wolves and this movie. The wide shots of John Ford and Sergio Leone. They look great from long distance, from the side shots, the landscapes, a lot of the nature shots with the cows and horses and the rivers and the lakes just look beautiful. I would probably agree with you guys. I think probably what Dan said, probably this is the best Western since Unforgiven.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
And the finale scenes. There's something about that shootout scenes. I mean, again, I was looking out for why do those scenes look really really good, and I sussed out that like a lot of the bullets that were going off, they were like echoing from the distance, and they sounded a lot more. It sounded more like thunder as the bullets were like being fired off, and they just looked really epic. I mean, with Costa with his great big gun, and I mean, a high tense 30 minutes. I mean, for a finale scene, it's as good as you're going to see. And Kevin Costner, fantastic director. He really does know how to make a good Western, and I really look forward to this new project of his, which is kind of like a long project that he's had in the pipeline for quite a while. Great director, Kevin Costner.
Yeah, definitely. We'll definitely look forward to his upcoming Western projects then. That's so amazing. I was actually just as you were talking about, sort of the film that he directed. I was like, wait, didn't he also direct Waterworld? So I quickly Googled Waterworld, but that was Kevin Reynolds who directed that, so it had me confused. I thought he also directed that film. But yeah, no, great director. Like you guys say, he knows how to shoot realism and westerns. He knows how to make it authentic feeling. The locations I think are fantastic as well. I think they shot it in Canada and Calgary, Canada,
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
Canada.
Yeah, which it looks amazing. I mean, you want to go for places that you can't see other people, or fences for miles and miles and miles, and they definitely achieve that without CGI or whatever. You can definitely see the wide shots that he has, and there's nothing for miles in there in the distance, which it gives you that feeling of what it was like in the Old West, where it's like huge, well, open range, as the title of the film is, where it's huge.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Open ranges, open spaces. Yeah.
You can tell that you can tell he's really picked a spot that he wanted to make this western look really grand with the landscapes.
Yeah. And it definitely is beautiful. So yeah, like I said before, if there's anything people can fault about this film, spoilers ahead, but I don't have many faults for this film, but it certainly won't be the directing. I think, it's all, sort of aces in that regard. It's top notch. So yeah. Let's see, what other segments do we have? I think next we sort of briefly talk about the music. I mean, it's not a sort of huge memorable score, but it is a memorable composer who did the music for this film. So we're going to give him a bit of a spotlight in this section, the music.
The music.
As of course always is a big sort of part of any western is the music score. Sort of in a lot of cases it can make or break a great western. If you have a great score for it, it can really make the film even better. If you have a terrible score, we're not going to name names, Kioma, it can sort of drag, put the film down a bit. But yeah, for this one we have a very talented composer, and I think it was his last film that he worked on as well. I could be mistaken, but I know that the composer passed away in 2003, so it might as well have been his last score. And it is the amazing Michael Kamen, who did a lot of great action scores: Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, License to Kill. You can go on Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, just to bring it back to a Kevin Costner film. And I did like his sort of big orchestral sort of score and arrangements for this film. So what did you guys think of Michael Kamen's score for the film? How did it suit it, etc., etc.? Dan?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there with that one word, suited. I mean, it's like one of them music. Thinking about it, like a Hans Zimmer, it's there. It goes with the flow of the film, and nothing really sort of stands out and takes you out. Sometimes a sort of soundtrack of thing can almost take you out a little bit, and you focus more on that. But it's kind of more like what's the word, ambience through this. It felt like to me. I wasn't distracted at any point. Yeah, I mean, it's not one I'd buy, not a soundtrack I'd buy, but it fits well suited. That's the word. About you, Carlos?
Yeah, decent score. I think a lot of the time where it was really effective was when it played on some of the key moments with Robert Duvall's character, Boss. I thought it was really nicely suited for Robert Duvall. And the age as well. It's kind of like this kind of experienced cowboy who's really never settled down. He's always been on the go. So I thought the music was perfectly suited without being totally outstanding. It's a good one. It's a good one. I did like it. Some of the music that was used at the start and towards the end of the movie. Yeah, I agree with Dan. It does sound a little bit kind of like Hans Zimmer, but obviously not as good as Hans Zimmer. But yeah, very acceptable, and yeah, plays a big part of the movie for me.
Yeah, it's definitely, I would say, serviceable for the film. It complements the scenes that the music plays in, and for certain scenes, it's more, like Dan said, more ambient sort of music, more ambience. But I did like the sort of the sweeping orchestral sort of tracks whenever there were like big open space shots, wide shots of the open range and stuff. And also during the action scene at the end, I thought the score there worked well when it kicked in, because obviously for the first part we were going to talk about it, it was sort of more natural sounds, for the most majority of the scene. But then when the music kicks in, it's I liked it, and I do love Michael Kamen as a composer. Again, it's probably just like Dan. It won't be a score that I'm going to pick up on CD anytime soon. But yeah, it did serve the film very nicely. So it's a good Western score for a good Western film. So yeah, with that, I'm going to say we'll move on to favorite scenes, as we just briefly touched on some favorite moments and scenes. Let's make it official.
Favorite scenes.
So I have quite a number of favorite scenes. I'm just going to let you guys take the lead on it, and I'm going to follow up after you guys are done. So Dan, favorite scenes for you?
Yeah, I'm going to go with two scenes for myself, as there's quite a few to share around. First one's actually Kevin Costner's approach to kind of the gang in the town. And this is kind of where you straight away see that Kevin Costner's dark past really starts to come out. He walks straight from Robert Duvall, points the gun straight at his head in front of the whole town and just blows him away. You know the scene I mean? I just think that is, for me, very simple, but that sums up Kevin Costner's past. And another real touching scene I like, it's only a small thing, but it's when Button is getting patched up by, let's say, the doctor, and Robert Duvall's caring side comes out, and he's not content with just him saying, can you do the best for him? He actually wants it in writing. I just thought that was a really nice touch. You see him at the desk signing it. Just two little bits, and I'm sure the two of you are going to mention some of the bigger scenes. So yeah, hand it over to you, Carlos.
I'm going to leave the finale to Jeff. There's some nice moments. I think Kevin Costner is kind of a little bit of like a Clint Eastwood cowboy for most of the movie. But I think probably my favourite scene is when they go into that bar and they order 2 whiskeys, and basically the bar owner is kind of ignoring their request, and the bar owner kind of leans over, and there's somebody's drink where Charlie kind of gets the pint glass and throws it along the table, and it hits the bar owner at the side shot right in the face. I thought that was very kind of like Clint Eastwood. And obviously, everybody in the bar do get noticed that the 2 gentlemen are in, because he does blow off the mirror on the wall, and there's a kind of big standoff scene in that bar. So that's probably my favourite scene. There are other key moments of the movie, but I'll leave the next one or two to Jeff.
Like I said, I got quite a number of favorite scenes and moments. It's a lot of little moments for me are some of the standout ones as well. In terms of big scenes that are my favorites, just picking out 2. I would say it's definitely the shootout at the end, the big sort of epic final stand showdown, duel, whatever you want to call it. Which, as mentioned, starts out with a lot of sort of natural sound. It's more, focusing on the shots of the gun sound, not sort of highlighted by music or whatever in the first sort of half of the scene. Of course, afterwards, a bit of music does kick in, but I do love it when it's all natural sounds and it's just bam, bam. You just hear the gunshots from all across the street that they're shooting. It's one of the best Western shootouts, if not the best. It comes damn close anyway. Shootouts in a Western, for me, it's a fantastic sort of finale to the film, final shootout. And again, as Dan mentioned, I love how it starts with, I'm not going to say too much for regards to the story, but yes, I did. I shot the boy too, and I enjoyed it. Bam! That's it. I love how that starts.
Was a great scene,
yeah. I just love how he just walks up to that guy and just, shoots him point blank in the head. I thought that was a brutal start to the shootout. Other big sort of set piece, huge scene for me. I love the scene in the storm during the rain. where they're sort of trying to cross the street to the saloon and to the restaurant. Obviously, a board along the way because it's filled with water because there's a huge storm going on. They sort of place these boards to get across, and one of the boards sort of drifts off away, and sort of Kevin Costner has to go through the water, right up into his knees. I think it's very deep, the water. And then there's a little dog that is caught in the water on the street, and he saves the dog. And I thought that was a very nice scene and a very sort of little tense scene as well. Is he gonna grab the dog in time or not? I thought, yeah, that was a really great scene. Other than that, some little moments I'm just gonna mention briefly. Again, towards the end, when they're sort of preparing for the big shootout, they go out to the general store and they get themselves a bit of Swiss. Was it? Yeah, it was Swiss chocolate.
Swiss chocolate.
Yeah, and a couple of Havana cigars, Cuban cigars, and which they want to enjoy before they, possibly, they don't know for sure if they're going to survive, if they're going to maybe possibly meet their maker in the end. They just want to have some enjoyment beforehand. And I do love how the chocolate melts in Kevin Costner's sort of breast pocket that he puts it in, and he's like, "Oh shit, it melted," and then. He's like, well, still good, even if it's melted. I did like that scene and how they sort of were just sort of discussing about life, the philosophizing stuff. And especially when they reveal their given names to each other before the shoot.
Yeah.
I don't think we should reveal it to the audience, but trust me, that scene is, it's a nice scene before we get into the action. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good moment.
I've
got to say one other little fun moment.
Yeah, go ahead, Carlos. Go ahead. I was just going to say I could go on and on.
Fun moment.
Yeah, go on.
There was another little fun moment that you guys haven't picked up, was when they take over the marshal's office and James Russo's character's they got him in handcuffed, and he sort of said to the both of them, "You guys are dead men." And then Robert Duvall, with the back of his gun, just gives him a little tap on his head, on his face, and that, you only give him a little friendly tap, but like it looked like it really, really hurt. That was quite funny for me. Maybe it wasn't intended to be comedic, but I mean, I thought it was quite funny. There are little sort of scenes like that. I mean, them revealing their names was quite funny, and also quite rare that you get a shootout scene where they're actually thinking about dying and not coming out of this, where they order the Cuban cigars and chocolate, which you don't see a lot of that in Westerns. You might just get like a brief moment where they think. I mean, a lot of that happens in the war movies. They're going to do their missions, but not so much in Westerns. And at the same time, they made that quite light-hearted and sort of a bit fun. When Boss goes into that store and the chocolate's really expensive, and the owner of the store says it's really expensive. He goes, "Oh, I don't care. Just give me
I don't care. Give it." Yeah.
2 Swiss bits of chocolate. And the owner never tasted Swiss chocolate. And he said,
I love how he actually gives the owner a piece. Like, try it. You gotta try it.
You sell it, but you never even tried it. And that was quite funny. So he's got nice touches to the movie.
Definitely. And I do love what you said there about the fact that they, pretty much accepted the fact that they might not come out of this alive, the shootout. And I do love that stuff. And something I did want to point out is sort of thematically and sort of, in terms of the story and stuff, and in terms of how it's paced, it's actually very similar, I feel, to Unforgiven, which we have mentioned a couple of times now. But I do feel it's a nice sort of counterpiece, I would say, to Unforgiven, where they both sort of deal with, the reality of violence and stuff. And I think they make a nice sort of double billing, if you will, those two films. There's something there. So
especially that rainy moment. You sort of think there's a lot of dark scenes with rain, and I was thinking, I hope they're not going to do too many dark scenes, because it's kind of going to be too much like they're copying Unforgiven. But I think it was just that one scene. Yeah,
true. That was very Unforgiven-esque. But like I said, sort of thematically, the whole film sort of reminds me a bit of Unforgiven as well. So again, for people out there, if you're fans already of Unforgiven, which I'm sure we're going to cover on the podcast sometime down the line, But this film would make a nice sort of companion piece, double bill to Unforgiven. I would say it sort of fits in nicely. So yeah, with that having been said, I think it's time for us to sort of round up the review and sort of discuss our sort of final points in the review roundup.
The Review Roundup.
So yeah, I'll go last on this one again. So yeah, we're gonna give the our final thoughts and also our famous cowboy rating, the cowboy hat rating out of 10 cowboy hats. So I'm gonna bring it over to you, Dan. What are your final thoughts about Open Range?
Yeah, so probably already I'm going to sound a bit like a broken record here because just so happens we've reviewed. This is another Western I really, really like. This one I'm going to say for a modern day Western 2003, it definitely is one of the best two with Unforgiven. I have struggled to find any negatives, any way I think I could want to see this film made better. Um, Everything from the casting to the pacing. Some people may feel with the pacing with a lot of the shots at the beginning because it's a good 20 or minutes or so before anything's really happening. You see like them at camp with the animals grazing in the fields. But I love that it sets the tone. It sets the bonding between the characters. A bit of brotherly love with Mose and Button.
Yeah.
You learn a bit about the characters, and I think the pace in 2 hours 10 for me works really well. And yeah, for an actual rating for this, I've gone over in my mind at 8 cowboy hats, 9 cowboy hats. I'm thinking I want to be generous and give it a 9 for a modern day one. I can't really fault it. So to give it an 8, I think I'd be a bit harsh on it. So to rank it the same as The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, which is a classic, I mean, you got to think this film's 20 years old, so you could probably regard it as a modern classic in its own
Yeah,
right.
modern
So I'm going to
classic.
give it a 9. Give
Yeah.
it a 9 and say to anyone, if you want a great modern day Western post 2000, this is probably a perfect place to start, in my opinion.
Yeah.
How about yourself, Carlos?
Yeah, rightly so. I mean, the casting's perfect. The directing, I love the scenic shots in this, which is a big part for me in enjoying westerns. I like seeing that, and Kevin Costner does that beautifully. And this is a beautifully shot western. It really, really is.
Yeah.
So much so that I think he used the same cinematographer as the guy for Dances with Wolves.
Oh yeah.
And you can clearly see that because, again, that is another beautiful western. There isn't really much negative points about. If you really want to get really critical, you could probably say that the two characters have been together for 10 years, where they share their moment, where you probably would have thought along their travels they would have. Robert Duvall's character would have told, Boss would have told Charlie that he had been married before, and then maybe Charlie's character probably would have sort of confined in Boss, that of all the people that he killed in the Civil War, 10 years is a lot of time, through their adventures. You'd probably think 10 years knowing somebody, there'd probably be stories along the way that you'd eventually tell, but they kind of look like two sort of characters that didn't really want to kind of reveal their past, because that's why they never really settled down. So I can kind of bypass that. But I agree with what Dan says. For anybody who thinks that modern day westerns are not that good, this is an essential one. Open Range. I'm going to give it a 8.5 cowboy hats for this one. It's a great one. It's a great one, an essential one to watch. Open Range. Jeff?
Yeah. So for me, putting aside my personal bias towards this film, because I should mention for the people out there that might not know it yet, this was the first sort of full feature-length Western that I did see in my lifetime. I actually did some internet research digging this afternoon. I did actually find out the date on which it was aired when I first saw it. So it was April the 7th in 2010 when I first saw it. It was 8 p.m. in the evening. They showed it on TV. And afterwards, they showed A Fistful of Dollars. And I always credit that night of watching those two films back to back as the night that made me a Western fan. So putting aside personal bias, because I love the film ever since I first saw it on that day, yeah, it's just a absolutely fantastic film in every sort of regard, every aspect. If you look at the filmmaking, again, like we said, talked about the directing, it's top notch. The acting, everybody's perfectly cast for the roles that they play. And yeah, I would agree with everything you guys said. It's a definite modern classic. I was actually debating amongst myself if I'm going to give this a 9 or an 8. I looked back and I saw that I gave it a 9 on IMDb many years ago. And then I was sort of debating if it's going to be an 8, but I thought an 8 would be too low. Then 8.5. I was like, But I think actually now that Dan has said he's going to give it a 9, Cowboy Hat star, out of rating out of 10, I should say. I'll probably go along with Dan and say it's also a 9 cowboy hats out of 10 for me as well. It's definitely a modern classic, and every time I watch it, it just sort of reaffirms my love of the film. Every time I watch it, it just, oh yeah, this is a great one. I see why I loved this so much when I was a kid, when I first saw it. Or kid, I think I was 13 when I first saw it in 2010. If I quickly do some head math, yeah, I think I was 13 at that point. But still, I loved it ever since I was that 13-year-old boy who first watched it. So yeah, it's a full-blown modern masterpiece of a Western for me. Modern classic for sure.
Yeah, and say one more thing. We'll talk about the releases. That it's a
Yeah,
Western
I
that's
was gonna
very,
bring it up. Yeah.
also, yeah, very affordable. I think Jeff, you've got the German one, haven't you, Jeff? The
I
UK one.
do, yeah. I got the German one, which is this one.
It's supposed to be the better one, I think.
And you have Carlos show that again. There we go. Yeah, that's the UK one. Is that DVD or Blu-ray, Carlos?
Blu-ray.
Ah,
From
okay.
101 Films.
Ah, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the German one's the better one because it's got a little bit more features. There's a little bit of a documentary.
Yeah.
Isn't
It
there,
does,
Jeff?
yeah. It's got a full-blown sort of documentary and audio commentary by Kevin Costner as well.
Yeah, that is
a lot of interviews. Yeah.
That is the better version to get. To be
That's
honest,
what I've
I'm
got
quite.
as well.
Oh,
Yeah,
there you go.
But I've flipped it round for those in the UK who don't like the labels.
Yeah, I was wondering
So-
because I'm opening my case and I don't have the option to flip it around.
Yeah,
I was wondering because, yeah, if I open it up, I have nothing on the back. So I can't even get rid of this bloody logo. Yeah.
I mean, this is the cover that I'm always familiar with, but I might have to go for that German one. But it's
a good release.
released. I think. I mean, no one films. It's nice that we've got it released here in the UK. But I think it's a Western that's very would do well for a nice special edition, like an hour video as such. It's a shame that it's on the 101 Films because they just put you're lucky if you get a trailer. So it's a shame, really.
It is.
Yeah, surprising that they put it out. I was shocked when they put it out and I see the release. I thought, might be a bit better than this. But Kevin Costner actually introduces this on the disc as from the special edition. Is it German
DVD.
release, special edition DVD release? So you got all the extras from that, and they're good extras.
Actually, the UK DVD had the extras. So you told me that when I met up with you, that Open Range was released, and I didn't know about it, and I grabbed it when I met up with you. But just a shame there's no features in it. But yeah, I mean, it's a modern day classic that deserves a special treatment release for sure. So are we talking about the next episode?
Yeah, I think we're going to bring it over to you then, Carlos, because you're next in line for a pick for the next film. So we'll bring it over to you to introduce it.
Yeah, so for the next episode, we are going to be talking about the 1943 black and white western starring Henry Fonda, the Oxbow Incident. So that's going to be the next episode upcoming.
Which, of course, we'll be very much looking forward to. And until then, just another quick reminder that the Westerns for Life podcast is not only findable or watchable here on YouTube, you can also listen to our episodes in audio form on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and wherever else sort of you find your podcasts. And with that, I'll say we've concluded another episode of the podcast. And we'll just say adios for this one. Adios, amigos. And we'll see you all for the Oxbow incident.
Westerns for life.
Indeed. Adios.
Always been country plenty for man and beast.
Times change, Mr. Spearman.
Most time a man will tell you his bad intentions if you listen. Let yourself hear. You reckon them cows worth getting killed over?
Cows is one thing, but one man telling another man where he can go in this country is something else. The lawman who sat in that jailhouse sort of sneering sticks in my craw.
Whole town knows there's a fight coming. They just hope it don't spill over to them.
Baxter's men bushwhacked our friend, shot him dead, shot a 16-year-old boy too, and clubbed him so hard he might not live.
I got no problem with killing bombs. Never have. Men are gonna get killed here today, Sue. And I'm gonna kill them.
The man's got a right to protect his property and his life, and we ain't letting no rancher or his lawman take either.
I want you to know that if I don't ever see you again, that I meant everything I said to you. And I appreciate everything you said to me.
You should have run when you had the chance, Spearman.
You're the one who killed our friend.
That's right.
Get out of this house!
Well, you may not know this, but there's things that gnaw at a man worse than dying.